Welcome back to Hardball. President Obama visited the Gulf Coast today, hoping to show he's in full command and control of this oil disaster.
I ultimately take responsibility for solving this crisis. I'm the president, and the buck stops with me. So I give the people of this community and the entire Gulf my word that we're going to hold ourselves accountable to do whatever it takes for as long as it takes to stop this catastrophe, to defend our natural resources, to repair the damage, and to keep this region on its feet. Justice will be done for those whose lives have been upended by this disaster, for the families of those whose lives have been lost. That is a solemn pledge that I am making.
Has the president beaten back his critics and put an end to charges that he's been passing the buck on this horror? NBC News Chief White House correspondent and political director Chuck Todd is in Louisiana with the president. And the Washington Post Chris Cillizza is managing editor of postpolitics.com and the author of The Fix. Chuck, you're down there. Have you got a sense that he's put his feet on the ground now, the president? This is chapter 2 of this crisis. He's now in command.
Well, it's not clear if he's now in command as far as the folks down here are concerned, but the folks I've talked to, they appreciate that he's now engaged. Look, even his friendliest people, one supporter, a person who said they're a supporter of the president, they're rooting for him overall, they voted for him. They said, you know what, the last 2 days, they've been great words out of the president's mouth, and it's great to have him down here. It all felt about a week or 2 weeks too late. And so that's the sense you get down here. They're not angry. They're frustrated. You don't hear venom. You don't hear the, where's he been? It's not personal to President Obama. It's more out of this frustration. Chris, behind me, you have this whole marina of shrimp and oyster boats. It hadn't moved all day. That isn't what's supposed to happen here. They can't do their job. You've got guys that, and this is their livelihood. So it's fear and desperation that creates this frustration for these folks. And again, not personal to the president, but more of like, hello, this is pretty bad, because as one person told me, look, Katrina shut us down for a month. We don't know how long this is going to shut us down, but we know it's going to shut us down for more than a month.
Well, the president spoke directly to the people of the Gulf Coast and made a promise. Let's listen to him there.
To the people of the Gulf Coast, I know that you've weathered your fair share of trials and tragedy. I know there have been times where you've wondered if you're being asked to face them alone. I'm here to tell you that you're not alone. You will not be abandoned. You will not be left behind. The cameras at some point may leave. The media may get tired of the story. But we will not. We are on your side, and we will see this through.
Chuck, I want to go to you again since you're down, and then I want to go to Chris. I think the president's getting some bad info here. The media is ahead of him on this story and will be in on this story long after he leaves. This is fundamentally a television story. It's a great newspaper story. The Wall Street Journal's been doing magnificent work on this. NBC and all our affiliates and all our various platforms are all over it. Every program on this network is all over it, and we're going to stand as long as that stuff's coming out of that pipe. What is he talking about when he says the cameras are going to walk away and I'll still be here? We were there before he got there. We'll be there after he leaves. What's he talking about?
Well, I think what he's trying to say is that a lot of times, and the thing is, there is a pattern with this, Chris. A lot of times you do see a story, because it's the same thing every day, that you don't see as much attention. But you're right. You don't have to go far to find this oil. We walked on the beach he went on was closed to the public and the press today. But you go to the other side of this peninsula here in Grand Isle, and you just see it, and it's coming in. And you see the cleanup crew, and frankly, you're glad there's a cleanup crew there. But as they're picking up this tar, these little tar balls, and they're coming in, they're quarter and nickel sized, okay? They're not these giant globs. There are some that are giant globs, but they're quarter and they're just coming in as fast as you can see. You're sitting there and you're watching essentially the tide roll in. And as it brings in these tar balls, they're picking them up, let's say, a dozen every 30 seconds or whatever it is in the sand, and trying to pick it up and put them in these containment bags. And by the time they walk away, The dozen has been replaced by another dozen of these tar balls. And that's the thing. We don't know how long that's going to keep happening. And we don't know if this is just the beginning. And as the president pointed out, you have this boom that's out there already. This is oil that's made it through this so-called containment boom.
Yeah, let's go to Chris Salizzo. Let's give him some equal time here. Chris, the same point here. The president has, seems to me, opened up the Chapter 2. It's no longer a question of will he show up and take responsibility. He said today, the buck stops with me. I'm in charge. I'm the president. This is me. I've never seen a president so clear in accepting responsibility. But the chain of command, as you reported, coming out of the White House, is he really instrumentally and executive-wise running the show, or has he passed it down to the Homeland Security Department and then passed it down to the Coast Guard?
Well, here's what's hard, Chris, is yesterday at the start of the press conference, he tried to make the point the government is in charge, essentially saying that there's this misnomer out there that somehow BP is leading this, but the government is in charge, they're making the calls. But in the next sentence or two, he said, but on a technological front, the BP folks know better how to fix this, so we're kind of deferring to them on that. It's just a nuanced argument that's hard. People want, whether or not this has a solution, people want to feel as though the federal government is working to fix this problem. And I think one of the problems, somebody said this to me in the office today, I think it's true. It's so simple in its way, but so complex. It's just a hole, and I think people say, well, why can't we plug it? Well, it's obviously not that easy, but I think just from a regular political calculus, people look at it and they say, why is this not a done deal? The split screen, by the way, I think really works against the president. You see him speaking, and then you see the pipe. He's saying we're doing everything we can. This is a problem. We're putting all the resources for it. But of course, with your other eyeball, you're watching stuff spew out of this pipe. It's just it's a hard situation to get your arms around politically, and I think that's why you see the president a little bit frustrated about it, because he knows this isn't great for him politically, but he also knows there's not much else he can do except be more present. And to Chuck's point, I think that's what the last 2 days have been about.
Back to Chuck, in terms of the White House staffing this thing, the president has often, I've made fun of it because I think it sounds kind of screwball, but he keeps talking about Secretary Chu being a Nobel Prize winner. Well, the president's a Nobel Prize winner. That's useless. Credentialing right now. Who cares? The question is, what are they doing right now? Why does he keep doing this, talking about what a high-level, highly credentialed crowd he has around him, when it's clear that this is in the hands of the Admiral of the Coast Guard?
Well, I think that's right. I think he's trying to say, hey, look, we're putting our best minds at this. And we know that it may not work, and he was referring to the top kill. But I have to say, you do start to question, there's been so much anxiety, I think, in the government about showing some progress, particularly this week, that you do wonder, have they gone too far? And you have to say this, Admiral Allen, we saw it this morning. So BP CEO Tony Hayward sits there and says, very cautious about this whole top kill, saying, we're pushing mud through, we're checking the pressures, we've stopped the pumping for now, and we got to see if it's going to take another couple of days before we know if it works. Admiral Allen has been sort of pushing the envelope a little bit, being optimistic. There's nothing wrong with optimism, but it may end up setting the bar too high. And then Admiral Allen did it again this morning. So the president today came down here, and by the way, announced something that had to be of particular concern to all of the governors and local leaders when he said, guess what, we're running out of this boom. And in fact, we have to go back and start manufacturing more. Well, this morning, Admiral Allen was asked this very question, hey, do we have enough boom? And he says, yes, we have enough. The question is how to get it in all the right places. So, is he going out there too far in this haste to sort of get their arm, to look like they've got their arms around this thing? They got to be careful not to overpromise. And the president himself seemed to ratchet back. He almost was pleading for patience, saying, look, this is unlike a catastrophe we've ever seen, and it's going to be a very long road ahead of us.
And
did anybody tell? Why did anybody tell? I got to go back to Chuck. Why did anybody tell Admiral Allen when he was on Hardball last night that they had stopped the top kill operation the night before at 11? He was on 5 o'clock this show last night, 5 o'clock Eastern, talking about how the thing was ongoing. We find out later that it had been killed the night before at 11, had been suspended. He wasn't informed. That to me is a little scary. Chuck.
Absolutely, and they've got to be careful here. You can't sit there and have the person who rhetorically and atmospheric-wise has been the best spokesperson they've got, right? Better than Salazar, better than Napolitano, anybody else they've been putting at this thing. Admiral Allen's got this sense of command about him, and that's great, except if he's going to go out there and come across maybe overly optimistic or overpromise, and then very quickly you find out what you just said, he didn't know that the mud had stopped, or he didn't know that where BP was at that moment in testing, the pressure testing that they're doing, because they have to stop, at different moments. It's going to undercut Admiral Allen's credibility, and they can't afford to have his credibility be questioned because they need this sense of command down here.
I agree with you. He seems like a good guy, a real public servant. Anyway, thank you, Chuck Tide. Thank you, Chris Cillizza.